Excellent. Well, welcome to another exciting edition of FireBytes. As you may know, the FireBytes is one of the ways that we like to reach out to inform end users, our partners, what we've been doing, and just give them tidbits of information. And hopefully it's very helpful to each of you. I know your time is valuable as a network engineer. You know, it seems that every so often things pop up, so I appreciate your time today. And if any time you're not able to catch a FireBytes session, feel free to check us out on YouTube at our YouTube channel. That's on the screen, youtube.com/WatchGuardNW. And as a reminder, today's session is being recorded, so we'll go ahead and get that posted up later today as well for you so that you can review it. And if at any time with any of these sessions, if you need a copy of the slide deck, feel free to just send me an email at johan.bloomhart@watchguard.com. We'll be sure to get that over to you. Now, in past editions of FireBytes, as you know, I kind of like to do a more hands-on approach. However, with today's topic of mobile VPN, and we're going to specifically focus on getting your mobile devices, whether it be Android, iPhone, tablet editions of either, connected to your WatchGuard firewalls. And because of that, it's a little more difficult to do hands-on. So we're going to spend a little bit more time in the slide deck, so bear with me. We'll cover that. And really where this all started with my life, and if you've heard me talk about my life as a network engineer, I was spent about 15, 16 years in a school district as a network engineer and a director of technology. Now, one of the first times I would consider myself previously to be a network hippie. Then all of a sudden, someone started sniffing my traffic when I was at a seminar, and I started thinking, gosh, you know, what am I sending across the wire? Am I looking at it? I was sending a plain text email passwords at the time. This was in the probably around 2004. Sending plain text passwords for FTP. I was doing some web consulting. I said, gosh, there's got to be a better way to be able to secure my traffic when I'm working remotely. And absolutely, as you guessed, that today's topic of mobile VPN is the answer. And there's a variety of reasons why we might use a mobile VPN. But today we're going to cover just a brief overview of VPNs, virtual private networks. We're going to look at authentication server compatibility. Some of you are interested in two-factor authentication, which we're not going to necessarily cover today. If you are interested in that, let me know, and we'll certainly cover it in future topic or FireBytes as well. So whether it be from your laptop using an SSL client, we're going to cover all of those advantages, disadvantages of the client. When we talk about, for instance, some of the other clients as well, today we're going to focus mainly on IPsec and SSL. We're going to talk about where to download the clients from WatchGuard. Now, given that you might have a large user base, you don't necessarily want every user going to WatchGuard. So we're going to give you some tips and tools or tricks on how to get them downloading the client seamlessly. So that's distributing your VPN clients to your network users. We're going to talk about some of the options for internet access, whether it be a default route or more of a routed bridge, and talk about that. And then we're going to go cover setting up the Android device for IPsec as well as an iPhone device for IPsec. Now, I also included a bit.ly link. I created it this morning for you, bit.ly/mobile VPN help. And that's going to get you right into WatchGuard's latest documentation. If you haven't checked out the WatchGuard documentation, I would highly encourage you to do that, because a lot of these topics are covered directly in there, including two-factor authentication, the NCP client, which we'll cover a little bit today. So for sure, make sure that you check out that documentation. Now, as we talk about a VPN overview, there's a number of different types of a VPN, but two of the most commonly used VPN scenarios that come to light. So one is more of a branch office VPN, and that's useful for connecting site-to-site scenarios, such as a hub and spoke. For instance, a retail shop to corporate, their corporate data center. And I have some working with some clients that have up to 130 different sites, all VPNing, failing over. We've covered some of that with FireBytes, but definitely let me know if you want to cover more of that on how to, maybe move away from an MPLS network to a cable modem, failing over to a 4G data card. We can certainly talk about that as well. Then the other scenario is more of a mobile VPN. So whether it's a mobile client using a tablet, laptops, or a phone, and really talking about securing that traffic. We do support IPsec, PPTP, SSL, and LLTP. Today we're going to, as I mentioned, cover or focus mainly on IPsec and SSL. Now the important thing about this is, as a network engineer, I wanted my bosses to be able to go out to Starbucks and not have to worry about people snooping in on any traffic they might be doing. So in that scenario, I set them up with a SSL client and set a zero route or a default route, which we'll cover. And then that guarantees me that all that traffic that my boss was doing was coming across corporate securely and then leaving from there. So again, a great way to secure your mobile users or give them access to resources that you might be hosting inside your network without exposing those resources outside. Now, I still see it quite a bit from time to time where users have a RDP session published to the world, so a Microsoft server or some other session. I would, again, highly encourage you to move away from those scenarios where you have RDP publicly available to the world. There's some very well-known vulnerabilities. It's not secure. So again, just make sure that you can set up a VPN client, and then you can start your RDP session, and you're going to increase your security for that. So as we talk about mobile VPN clients, we offer a few different options at WatchGuard. So the IPsec is a 256-bit AES multi-layer encryption. It is a little bit higher level encryption than SSL. However, given that I am travel quite a bit on the road, I'm on networks that don't necessarily play too well with the IPsec client. Most often, I use the SSL client from my laptop. Now, when I'm out and about, maybe needing to remote in from my iPad, that's when I would typically use the IPsec client. Now, the IPsec client, we have a few different options again. We have a TrueSoft client that's free. WatchGuard has not produced this, however, in collaboration with TrueSoft, we have made it available, so you can go and download that actually from our website as well. We also have an NCP client. Now, there is a small fee for that, but that does give you some of the options that some of the other clients don't give you, including pre-boot authentication, which really allows those Microsoft laptops to log into a domain remotely and run those domain startup scripts. So again, before you get to the GINA or the login screen of Windows, it's going to go ahead and automatically start that VPN connection regardless of where you're at or where your users are at. So you have that seamless integration just like they were sitting at corporate. We also have some of the bulk licensing available for that, and that does support certificate-based client authentication. Now, we also have a SSL client, which is a free WatchGuard developed client. I've heard some people in the past say, well, I tried that maybe 5 years ago, and it didn't really work too well for me. I would encourage you to give that another shot because, again, that's what I use 90% of my time, remoting in from the laptop, and that works beautifully regardless of what networks I'm at. And again, that's just going over port 443. So again, most of the time, the networks that would be blocking IPsec traffic would not have an issue with 443. And again, we can download that straight from software.watchguard.com. And again, if you haven't checked out the new, well, it's not so new anymore, but we've completely taken away all the, or taken those resources, those downloads, outside of the login process, so you don't even need to log in to WatchGuard for that. Very handy. So as we look at the authentication server compatibility, we have more and more clients and business needs for moving to a two-factor authentication scenario. Now we do support Vasco, Radius, a secure ID. As you look at that, at this chart, you can definitely see where the options are supported. So for instance, the ShrewSoft we see here, the VPN client for Windows does not support two-factor authentication. However, if you look at, for instance, the SSL client, we do support two-factor authentication for that. Some of the other clients are Mobile VPN with PPTP. You can see some of those options as well. So just make sure that you give this a once over, this authentication server compatibility. Again, I grabbed this right from the help docs online from WatchGuard. And that's one of the things I say that WatchGuard is phenomenal at, among many other things, is providing useful help documentation. So feel free to hop in there, check that out, or grab a copy of these slides from me for this compatibility chart. Now, more on two-factor authentication is that more details are available online. Just to show you, I went to WatchGuard FireWire docs. Just went ahead and did a search for secure ID, and you can see all of the options that are available for that. Now, coming here shortly, we are redoing a tech search engine on WatchGuard's webpage. So feel free to, at that point, go in there and check that out. I'll have more details to you. But again, it's just going to make your jobs easier as a network administrator. Now, as we look at downloading those mobile VPN clients from WatchGuard, again, for you as a network administrator, it's one thing to go to software.watchguard.com. However, I recognize having that role previously that it's not necessarily so easy to get your users to download it from there. So we do have some more options, but just to cover this, you go to software.watchguard.com, choose your device, and then you have a few different options available. So you have your SSL client for Windows, also for Mac OS X. We do have the ShrewSoft client there provided by ShrewSoft. We also have the IPsec mobile VPN client from NCP that has that two-factor authentication and a few other benefits as well, readily available from our website. So that's where you would get it. Now the other option, as I mentioned a few times already, is that you can have your users simply go to the IP address of your WatchGuard firewall. So whether it be external IP address, and you can see right here, so in your, maybe you have a help doc that you're sending out to, or an email that you're sending out to your remote workers. You can simply have them go to this HTTPS, obviously a fully qualified domain name would work here as well. The IP address of the, or the external IP address of your firewall, unless they were internal, obviously. :4100 SSL VPN.html. Now, I can already hear many of you thinking in your head, well, gosh, that seems unsecure to have that readily available. Don't worry, you would have your users log in to the authentication portal, and once they've successfully authenticated, then they'll be presented with these options. So again, right from here, we have available, or items available to download, the mobile SSL client for Windows, Mac, and then we also have a client profile as well. But really with the SSL client, not much to configure, as you can see right here. So with SSL client, you just specify a server, either an IP address or a fully qualified domain name. Now for those of you that are working with multiple firewalls, the good news is that there's simply a drop-down that allows you to have a more of a collection of recently used resources there. You would type in your username and password and hit connect, and from there you're off and going. Now, as I mentioned, there's a couple of different options for, or configurations for internet access. So most oftentimes if you're like me, you're going to want your mobile users to force all that traffic through corporate. Now, that could be Facebook traffic. That could be any traffic that they're doing on their mobile device. And the main purpose of this is simply to prevent people snooping that traffic, more of a man-in-the-middle attack. So what we can do is actually force all client traffic through the tunnel, and that's what we call a default route or a zero route tunnel. And again, that's the most secure option that requires all that traffic routed through the VPN tunnel to the firebox, and then it's sent out to the internet. So in this case, whatever website you're going to on the internet is going to see the external IP address of the firewall. It does use a bit more processing power and bandwidth, so just make sure that as you're looking at that, sizing up your firewall, that you take those needs into consideration as well. Now, with that being said, you know, that the same great features, security benefits that your users are going to have internally, including APT blocker, any advanced security policies that you're applying to your internal users, would also apply to those users that are using the default route VPN. Then we also have allowed direct access to the internet, and this is a split tunnel VPN. So with this option, your users can browse the internet, but internet traffic isn't routed through, for instance, corporate. So it's, if they were to go to anything outside of corporate, it would be their phone's IP address or their device's IP address. And then anything going to corporate, for instance, maybe you had a website that was published at corporate, that traffic would just go to a corporate. So again, if you are using split tunneling, obviously we would recommend that each client computer have a software firewall. Make sure that that client is protected, because you're not forcing all that traffic to go through your firewall, and as a result, you're not necessarily making sure they're not getting CryptoLocker or another malware download behind the scenes. So as we look at setting up an Android for IPsec, and again, we'll go ahead and cover the firewall configuration side as well. And again, this would apply to anything run in Android 4 or later. You could have, for instance, your Kindle tablets on here. But just to give you a walkthrough on configuring that native client on the Android device, just go to Settings. In there, you have a wireless and networks section. Select More, and under there, you're going to have a VPN, just like the screenshots are going to show you. Now, we're going to go ahead and add a VPN network, and that's going to appear. From there, we simply type in a descriptive name. In this case, we have WG-VPN. We're going to choose IPsec, XAuth, PreShared Key, or PSK. We're also going to specify the IP address of that server, or again, it could be the fully qualified domain name. Now with IPsec, we also have to have a group name and a pre-shared key. So in this example, we are using the name Droid Group as the user group, and then we're using the pre-shared key, as you can see below, that's privacy protected. Now, the main things to configure on that screen, again, the name, the type, the server address, the identifier or the group name, and then the pre-shared key. You go ahead and save that configuration. Now, the next step is to simply click Connect and type in your username and password. If you wanted it to, for instance, auto-connect without putting in the password, you can save that. Or for an extra layer of security, you can require that password to be entered every time. As you can see, save that account information. Now, to verify that connection was successful, and again, this is based on using a zero route or default route tunnel where we're forcing all that traffic back to corporate, you can simply go to whatismyip.com and see that your IP address is the external IP address of the firebox. To set up an iOS device for IPsec, again, this could be either an iPhone, iPad. We're going to simply go into Settings, General, And as you can see right here, we have a VPN. Now, once we've actually set up this VPN resources, we can actually just go to settings rather than go into general VPN. There's settings, and there's a VPN toggle right there as well. So it saves a few extra steps once it's actually configured. And then on the Android as well, you can also configure in constant or an always-on VPN connection. So anytime that a laptop or a tablet is out there, it's connected to the internet, toggle that, and we're forcing all that traffic to go through that VPN tunnel. And then we're going to add a VPN configuration. Again, we're going to show you the firewall configuration of this as well that will match these settings. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and select the type of IPsec, which is going to be the Cisco pre-built client for the iOS devices. Type in the description. So very similar to the Android devices. But again, I've had a number of questions on how we can do this. A lot of you might be not leveraging the mobile SSL VPN clients today, so this way we can get you secured. So again, we're going to type in the server IP address. In this case, it's a little bit backwards to what the Android was looking at. We would type in the account name, so that's the iOS user that you see there in the password. Now with that, that can simply be leveraged into Active Directory. In this case, we're simply using the onboard authentication server or database from WatchGuard, simply because that's the easiest to do in a lot of these example scenarios that we're providing. And then we would type in the group name, iOS group. We could also do more of a generic group. So if we wanted to just have a mobile group that included Android versus Apple or encompass both of them, we could just have a mobile group as well as having that shared secret as well. So again, not that it has to be device specific for the iOS group. So the main things in there is your type. So you want to select the IPsec, go ahead and describe that connection, whatever that might be more useful or most useful to the end user. Server name, account, password, group name, the group secret, and then save the connection. Now, once you're actually connected, you would toggle the not connected slider, as you can see here. So the key with, for instance, the IPsec client for Apple is that it tells you, again, IPsec, or excuse me, the VPN connection is alive simply by that box on the status bar. Now, with the Android devices, it does have a VPN indicator as well in the status bar. We can see that it's connected. Again, if you're doing a zero route tunnel, you can go to whatismyip.com and verify that IP address. Now, as I mentioned, let's go ahead and swap over to the configuration side of things, and I will show you how to set that up under your policy manager. And again, everything that we're doing on the policy manager can be done through the web UI. So as we look at, for instance, VPN, we go to Mobile VPN. We have a few different options. We have the IPsec, SSL Client. So we're gonna, in this case, we're going to go into, I'm going to pull up these settings here and see if we can run them side by side, because we want to go ahead and match up what we're seeing on the Android side with what is being shown on the WatchGuard configuration. So in this case, we're seeing the external IP address. Let me go ahead and maximize this out for you guys. My apologies if it's too difficult to see. It should be a little bit easier for you. So we have the external IP address. So just to verify, I'm going into network configuration, going into external configuration, and making sure that that external IP address matches what's the external IP address on my WatchGuard, which it does. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the IPsec client. In this case, we've already added a Droid group, but let's go ahead and just run through the wizard again. I will show you how easy it is to set this up. So in this case, I just click on Add. It starts up the mobile VPN with IPsec wizard. I'm going to go ahead and say my authentication server is Firebox. Again, if I wanted to do a secure ID or a radius with another two-factor authentication, we could do that as well. for this demonstration, I'm just going to type in Firebox. So if I wanted, again, to just have a mobile user group, and these are the users that are able to authenticate to your VPN connection. I'm going to go ahead and choose a pre-built, or sorry, a pre-shared key, as I mentioned. We also have the ability to use an RSA certificate that's issued by your management server. Again, for this case and for the majority of you, a pre-shared key would be sufficient. Now, it's this easy where we say, you know what? We want all traffic to go through the firewall. So we have this, so it's more secure. If I didn't want to have a zero route or a default route, I could say, let's only give access, or let's only use the VPN connection for these resources. However, in this case, I want to force all connection. Now, in this, we see the 0.0.0.0 /0, which gives you that zero route tunnel. Now, in this case, we just type in the IP addresses. Now, as a network administrator, I would probably suggest that you have different IP addresses. It makes it easy to determine whether or not it's a mobile user. Now, the good news is, as we talk about, for instance, dimension and identifying those users, because we have that user authentication through the IPsec or SSL client, we're automatically going to be displaying that username that might be showing up in dimension. So any traffic that your mobile clients generate are going to be shown as their users that they have. And in that case, I already had assigned a previous one, so I'm just going to do 4.1, 192.168.4.10. So anyone that uses this mobile VPN with IPsec is going to get an IP address from here. Now, this does allow you to also create policy based on those. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now, if I wanted to, I could grab this configuration file and distribute it to people using the TrueSoft client. So if we had a secure download area, we could simply publish those files. Now, as we look at this, we have the ability to obviously go back and edit it, make sure that we have the IP address, external IP address is correct. We could also have a backup IP address. So if you had multiple providers, we could do that as well. Most of the time, all the defaults are going to be great for you. So click OK. And that's as easy as it is to set up the IPsec mobile VPN. Now, for the SSL, I do want to bring your attention to, if you look at these default policies, once we're done with the SSL client or configuration, it's actually going to add in a few more policies for us. So as we run through that wizard, again, extremely easy, just like everything with WatchGuard, where we're focusing on manageability. We can simply click on Activate Mobile VPN with SSL, choose my gateway, backup gateway if we needed to. In this case, we can do routed VPN traffic or bridge. But again, for most of you, the routed VPN with forcing all traffic through the tunnel is going to be sufficient. If I wanted to specify individual resources, I could simply do that, or in this case, as I mentioned, I'm going to force all client traffic through that tunnel. Now here we're going to choose authentication server. So if you had an Active Directory or a secure ID or another radius server, we can go ahead and select that here as well. We have a few different options: how to reconnect after a connection is lost, force users to authenticate after a connection is lost. That's the recommended way if you are using two-factor authentication to have this be selected. Now, in this case, we're actually adding a group that's out of the gate as SSL VPN-users. So if we wanted Billy or Jane to be able to log in, we could simply add them to that group. However, if you have it already in an existing group, and maybe on your Active Directory side, we can simply add in that group here. Mobile VPN users, again, we can choose any authentication server, or we could be specific to this, a particular domain. just take a look at advanced. We can specify, for instance, a domain name that you want to give them for a DNS lookup. Specify DNS servers, WIN servers. So again, giving you a few different options there. Go back to general, click OK. Now we also have this SSL VPN client, or excuse me, this VPN policy that was created. That automatically says any external, any trusted, any optional has access, and if we scroll over, has access to the firebox. And that allows us to, again, just have that 443 traffic to the firewall. It's that easy. Once you're done with that, simply have a user log in, and they'll be successfully connected to your network. So hopefully that was helpful for you. Let me go ahead and throw up the slides. Again, we do have our next FireBytes session on December 4th, 2015. Again, if you have any topics that you would like to see us go over, feel free to send them over to myself, to Wendy, or you can contact us through our YouTube channel. Again, youtube.com/WatchGuardNW. There's a bit.ly link again that gets you to the WatchGuard documentation. Since we are running a little bit behind on time, I know your time's valuable. I will follow up with those questions individually over email, so look for those answers a little bit later today. But again, this will be posted online. If you want to see a copy of the slides, feel free to email me. We'll get them over to you. But again, I want to thank you for your time, and hopefully this session of FireBytes was helpful for you. And we will see you on December 4th at the next FireBytes session. So thanks so much, everyone, and have a great weekend. Take care.